Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 418, Hail to the Chef. The episode begins with Ash and the gang walking along a path in the middle of a forest, relatively content as they went towards Saffron City for May's first Kanto Pokemon contest. May was extremely excited, leading Ash to assume that it was due to her upcoming contest, and May confirmed this, talking about all the potentially exciting new Pokemon and challenges she would have to face in a Kanto contest as opposed to a Hoenn contest, and also wondered what Kanto contest halls look like as opposed to Hoenn contest halls. Just then, when thinking about contests, a vision of her rival and enemy, Drew, appeared in her head, leading May to remind herself that she couldn't allow herself to be humiliated by anyone like Drew again during the contest, and also, the contest would never be as easy as she was anticipating because they had many other strong and smart coordinators participating too. Just then, May's Munchlax startles everyone as it forcibly pops out of its Pokeball and started to smell something delicious in the air, and then immediately ran off in search of its source. May tells Munchlax to slow down, but Munchlax doesn't listen, so May was forced to go running after her Pokemon to make sure it didn't get into any trouble. Meanwhile, Team Rocket were wandering in the same woods Ash and the gang were in, and obviously continuing to follow Ash and the gang, wanting to spy on them, but they were having trouble catching up and even moving in general, because they were extremely hungry and would practically take anything to eat. They were able to get some walking in, though it was very slow, but they were so starving that the three of them fell to the ground, and Jessie started to complain about how much work it was tracking Ash and the gang constantly. Jessie soon stopped thinking about Ash, though, when she spotted what she believed to be a restaurant in the distance, not too far away. So Team Rocket instantly ran towards the restaurant, excited at the prospect of all the delicious food that could be there. Jessie stops, though, and tries to get Meowth and James to stop as well, reminding them that there was no point in them going to the restaurant, because they all had no money. James and Meowth were so hyped that they were unable to stop in time, and they ended up crashing right into the restaurant's door, and they fall depressed onto the ground. Luckily for Team Rocket, though, James and Meowth hitting the door alerted the restaurant's owner, who invites them into her restaurant regardless, introducing herself as Rhoda, explaining that today was her restaurant's grand opening, and all of the meals were free, much to Team Rocket's delight. But also a surprise. Meanwhile, back with Ash and the gang, they all followed Munchlax, and we found out the source of what it had smelled, being another restaurant. At least that's what the building looked like. So Munchlax must have smelled the food in there. May, seeing that Munchlax had stopped in front of this restaurant, admitted that she was hungry as well to Munchlax, and with that, they all decided to go in and check the restaurant out. Since Max, Brock, and Ash agreed that they could go in, but before they could actually open the door, they were greeted by the owner of this restaurant, Rhonda, and she looked pretty similar to Rhoda, just with a bit different clothes, and Rhonda also had a Mr. Mime with her. Anyways, Rhonda proceeded to introduce herself and her Mr. Mime, and welcome them in to the restaurant. Ash and the gang, especially Max, were immensely shocked at the fact that Mr. Mime was wearing some cooking clothes and an apron, leading Rhonda to explain that Mr. Mime was her head chef of the restaurant. Not only that, Ash and the gang wouldn't just get a meal, they would also get an awesome show as well, since Mr. Mime could cook in a very interesting way that was very interesting for everyone to watch. Brock, as usual, cuts Rhonda off to flirt with her, which startles Rhonda as she nervously smiles, not knowing how to react to Brock's declaration of his love. Brock then starts to have a fantasy of him sitting alone with Rhonda at a dinner table, but his fantasy was interrupted as Max dragged him off by the ear. Ashley and Pikachu apologized on Brock's behalf, but thankfully Rhonda didn't care that much. Meanwhile, back with Team Rocket, they were still at the other restaurant and were now sitting down, about to be brought some food. But first, Rhoda revealed that this restaurant had a head chef that was a Pokemon as well, being a Sneasel. Rhoda, seeing Meowth, then asks Jessie and James if they were on their way to Saffron City for the new contest coming up, saying that the Meowth could probably do well in the contest. The mention of Pokemon contest instantly made Jessie excited, and she was going to ask more about it, but before she could, Meowth answered for Jessie, saying that she didn't know about the Saffron contest, but she was very interested in contests, and also clarified that he wouldn't be entering the contest himself because he didn't belong to any trainer. Rhoda was obviously startled by the talking Pokemon and ran back. Jessie tries to calm Rhoda down, however, saying that what she heard wasn't Meowth talking, but just their stomachs growling, and she introduces herself as a top coordinator, having a little fantasy of her dancing around in a dress as a top coordinator. Rhoda instantly goes back to Jessie, James, and Meowth, excited at meeting Jessie, believing that she was a top coordinator, and she'd always wanted to meet a famous person such as a top coordinator. But just then, she remembers that she should probably get the menu for Team Rocket to choose their food, and runs off to get it, apologizing for the delay. Just then, Team Rocket heard the chef Sneasel laughing to itself, having watched the whole situation and finding it funny. When Team Rocket hears this, Jessie and James immediately get excited, seeing the Sneasel for the first time, admitting that it would be pretty cool to have it on Team Rocket, since it seemed good at its job and actually useful, which made Meowth offended, since he believed that Jessie and James were basically wanting to replace him with Sneasel and calling him useless. A jealous Meowth starts to talk human language, wanting to prove that he was better than the Sneasel, but Jessie hits Meowth, pushing his head down to stop him from talking, explaining to Meowth that he better keep his mouth shut, because they didn't want to scare off Rhoda again, especially if they wanted food. Suddenly, the Sneasel laughs again, and it also starts talking and trying to taunt Meowth, which Meowth was able to figure out after translating. So this made Meowth extremely angry that the Sneasel had the gall to make fun of him. so he started to argue back with the Sneasel. James, not being able to hear what the Sneasel had said, asked Meowth why he was being so rude to Sneasel, which only made Meowth more angry. Jessie then suggested that they catch the Sneasel, which made Meowth even more angry as well. He didn't ever want to be anywhere near a Sneasel, and the argument then escalated, with both Meowth and Sneasel taking shots at each other, until Jessie happily jumped into the argument, commenting that Team Rocket was going to capture Sneasel no matter what, which scared Meowth, as he didn't want to be replaced. Meowth was so scared, to the point where he imagined himself falling off a cliff into the raging waters. Just then, though, Rhoda came back and heard the argument, believing that Sneasel was in the wrong, as Meowth had said, and ordered Sneasel to apologize. And Sneasel did, bowing its head towards Meowth. Rhoda, thinking that maybe Team Rocket would be against her Sneasel now, tries to assure them that Sneasel was an amazing cook. Hearing this, Jessie and James become very excited at the prospect of tasting some of Sneasel's food. Meowth, however, claimed that he would not believe Sneasel could possibly be a good cook until he actually tasted the food, so Sneasel insulted Meowth and bullied him, which made Meowth angry, so he started to argue with Sneasel again. But before the argument could get too bad, James stopped Meowth by pulling Meowth back and trying to calm him down. And Sneasel soon calmed down, resuming simply just washing off some pots and pans. Jessie then officially orders everything from the menu, since it was all free. And with that, Rhoda instantly ordered Sneasel to get to work. Oh yeah, by the way, Rhoda had come back with the menu, if that wasn't obvious, because, Jessie ordered and everything. Meanwhile, back with Action Gang, inside Rhonda's restaurant. The four of them were very excited as they waited for Mr. Mime's cooking performance to start, where it would make food in a very fancy way. Just then, the curtains that Action Gang were sitting in front of were pulled back, and Action Gang's attention immediately went to all the cooking equipment on a table, and they were in awe at how much equipment there was. They see Mr. Mime too, of course, who starts its show. Mr. Mime does start its show, as per Rhoda's orders, and starts using Psychic with its hands to get several plates, utensils, pots, and pans ready, and also chop up all of the ingredients, as well as stirring them and cooking them, utilizing other tools such as cutting boards, bowls, spoons, etc. And Action Gang look on in awe, excited for what Mr. Mime was going to end up cooking, as Rhonda stated her belief that artistic style in cooking was just as important as the taste. That's why she liked having Mr. Mime as her head chef. While Mr. Mime was chopping up and cooking all the ingredients, such as vegetables and fruit, such as apples and lettuce and all that, and mixing all the fruit into a fruit salad of some kind, Brock started to flirt with Rhonda again, literally trying to sneak under the table and grab her hand to flirt with her, but thankfully, Max pulls him back by the ear, stopping him yet again, which snapped Brock back to reality, because he had momentarily thought about going on a date with Rhonda in another fantasy. Right as Mr. Mime continues to just mix up the fruit salad. Back at the other restaurant with Team Rocket, Sneasel has already finished cooking its meal, which was a simple meat dish with sauce, almost a spaghetti-like thing, but just minus the noodles. Although Rhoda claimed that this dish was a burger of some kind. A burger for each of them. Team Rocket were a bit depressed that they only got a little burger, because they expected a lot more from a supposed great cook who was a head chef. Even though James thought it looked disgusting, though, he was starving, so he tried to bite, and much to James' amazement, he actually started to blush and brag about how delicious the burger actually was. Jessie then tried some too, convinced, and agreed that it tasted awesome. So awesome that Jessie practically went insane, and she started to daydream about never stopping to eat it. Even though Meowth was skeptical, seeing Jessie and James enjoy their food, he imagined himself enjoying the food as well, and tried some. However, Meowth didn't have the same reaction as Jessie and James, and found the food disgusting. Almost like Sneasel had deliberately made Meowth's meal worse, huh? Anyways, Jessie and James quickly finished their first meal, so Rhoda presents Team Rocket with their second meal that Sneasel had just prepared, meatballs. And she even gives Meowth some too. As Jessie and James eat their plates of meatballs, they enjoy them very much, so Meowth decides to give Sneasel the benefit of the doubt and hope that his meatballs tasted that good as well, as he dumped all his meatballs down his throat in one bite, but he was forced to immediately drink all his water because he found the food extremely foul-tasting and spicy. So spicy that he was literally breathing fire out of his mouth. Meowth immediately became a bit suspicious of the fact that Jessie and James could be tasting shit that was different than what he tasted, and better than what he tasted. So, trying to figure out why, he stole one of Jessie's meatballs and ate it, preparing himself as he expected it to be extremely hot and foul-tasting as well. But he was shocked to find out that it was actually as delicious as James and Jessie had said. Finding this out instantly makes Meowth angry, though, as he pulls out his claws, angry that Sneasel had made the food worse for him on purpose, and different just to piss him off. Meanwhile, back at Rhonda and Mr. Mime's restaurant, Action Gang were amazed to see the platter of lunch they had received from Mr. Mime, amazed by how good it looked and how stylish it had been cooked by Mr. Mime, observing the many, many, many dishes on the plate at the same time, unlike how Sneasel only served one small course at a time. Soon, though, Action Gang couldn't bear just looking at the food, because it looked extremely edible, so they took their utensils and dug the fuck in to their delicious meal. However, immediately after digging in, they instantly fell back out of their chairs. Even Brock couldn't help himself from admitting the food was bad, even though he wanted to impress Rhonda and not upset her, and even Munchlax, who forcibly popped out of his Pokeball and would usually eat anything, found this disgusting. Which led Rhonda to come to the conclusion that the food looked delicious, but actually tasted disgusting, so she apologized profusely, thinking it was all her fault, not her Mr. Mime's, because she was the one who trained her Mr. Mime. Just then, it was implied that the two restaurants that Action Gang and Team Rocket were at are connected somehow, as Meowth came crashing through the restaurant wall into the restaurant Ash and the gang were in, immediately followed by Sneasel, as the two of them were now arguing at this point because of the bad food Meowth had received and the scratching that Meowth was doing to Sneasel, and Sneasel was trying to do back. Just then, Rhoda comes rushing in from her restaurant and immediately demands Sneasel to stop fighting, but Sneasel refuses and simply just jumps past her, knocking her over and into Brock's arms. And since Rhoda looks so similar to Rhonda, Brock mistook Rhoda for Rhonda. But just then, Rhonda walked up to Brock and Rhoda and questioned what the fuck Rhoda was doing in her restaurant. Brock, seeing what he believed was two Rhondas, immediately looked back and forth between them, confused, before Rhonda explained what was going on. Rhoda was actually her twin sister, which Rhoda confirmed, with the two twins also confirming that their two restaurants were actually part of the same building, just separated by a wall, which was pretty much obvious. Just then, Jesse and James go through the hole in the wall that Meowth had made, and were shocked to see Ash and the gang when they were just looking for Meowth, and Ash and the gang were shocked to see Team Rocket as well. Rhoda then spots the meal that Rhonda's Mr. Mime made, and walks over to it and examines it, admitting that it did look tasty, but when she tasted it, it did not taste good, which was why Ash and the gang fell over. And Rhoda accuses Rhonda of only making food to make it look good, not actually making it taste good. And Rhoda also told Rhonda that their father always taught them that only taste mattered, not how the food looked. So she basically accused her of being a disgrace to their father and said that she should be allowed to take over the whole restaurant, not only half of it. Because basically the entire building used to be their father's, but then he split it half and half between his daughters. Anyways, Rhonda then argues back that making your food look better was the most important, and was better than Rhoda, who not only didn't care for food's appearance, but gave away food for free, stating that would just kill the family business. Rhoda got angry at this, and proposed that she and her sister have a contest tomorrow to decide what truly was better, style or taste, and the winner of the contest would get the whole restaurant. Although Rhoda, as well as Meowth, pointed out the flaws in that idea, saying that each of them would only go for style or taste, and they wouldn't really prove anything because they would only go for what they liked best. So Rhonda and Meowth suggested that the competition go as follows. Basically, both Rhonda and Rhoda would have to make a meal that incorporated both style and taste, and the one that could do the best on both style and taste would win. Rhoda accepted the challenge for the competition, but noted that they would need judges. So Ash and the gang and Team Rocket volunteered to be the judges, along with Meowth. With Meowth extremely excited to be a judge, because he felt that he could interfere with Rhoda's chances of winning somehow, so that he could get revenge on Sneasel, because if Rhoda's meal was bad, that would be Sneasel's fault, and then Sneasel would have to take the blame, which would satisfy Meowth. Brock was more than happy to be a judge, since he wanted to do everything he could to help out either Rhonda or Rhoda. Apparently, Rhonda and Rhoda agreed that the judges could also be used as coaches, because we then see later that day, while Rhoda was preparing for their competition tomorrow, she went up to Team Rocket and asked for their assistance, bowing as she explained her concern, basically saying that while her Sneasel was able to make great tasting food, it had problems with making it look good, and worried that she wouldn't win the contest because she wasn't able to make the food look as good as how her sister's Mr. Mime was able to. And then stated that she wanted Jessie to train her Sneasel. James and Jessie questioned how they could be of any assistance, although Rhoda stated that since Jessie was a top coordinator, like she said, Rhoda believed that Jessie knew what she was doing with Pokemon and could train her Sneasel to make good-looking food, much like how a top coordinator had to make good-looking performances, I guess. Adding on that since Jessie was a top coordinator, there was no way she and her Sneasel could fail the challenge under Jessie's tutelage. Jessie, happy to be recognized as a top coordinator, even if she wasn't one, promised to train Sneasel and help it out, making James confused as he whispered into Jessie's ear, asking why she suddenly had a sense of goodwill and was helping out Rhoda, although Jessie clarified, whispering to James that she wasn't actually planning on genuinely helping Rhoda, she just needed an opportunity to get up close to Sneasel, and then they could steal Sneasel, and in the process find a way to steal Mr. Mime and Pikachu during the competition as well, making James excited, even though Jessie didn't have a full-blown plan yet. Meanwhile, Rhonda had went up to Ash and the gang to ask for their assistance regarding her Mr. Mime, explaining that her problem was the opposite of her sister's, being that while she could make food look good, she couldn't make it taste good, or rather, her Mr. Mime couldn't. Brock, hearing that Rhonda needed any sort of assistance whatsoever, prompted him to immediately reveal that he was a breeder and a chef, so he knew quite a bit about food. Hearing this, Rhonda begged Brock to help her improve Mr. Mime's actual cooking ability in terms of taste, and Brock agreed to mentor and train Mr. Mime very easily. Rhonda thanks Brock for the help and tells Ash and the gang that she and Rhoda should actually be running a restaurant together, but they argued all the time, especially since Rhoda treated Rhonda like an amateur. Hearing this, Brock became even more motivated to help Rhonda out, hoping that maybe if Rhoda saw that Rhonda wasn't an amateur, then the two of them would stop arguing and could actually run the restaurant together, not just give the restaurant fully to one person. So with that, Brock instantly got to work training Mr. Mime. The first thing Brock did was simply have Mr. Mime prepare a stew under his supervision. So Mr. Mime started by simply making a stew and stirring it with its bare hands. Well, the soup ladle, but you know what I mean. But just then, Mr. Mime tries to use its psychic powers to grab some spices and seasonings and put them in the stew, although Brock stops it, explaining that if it wanted to be a truly good cook that made good tasting food, then it had to rely on its own cooking ability and master cooking without help from its psychic powers, explaining that maybe the psychic powers were messing with the taste a little bit. Mr. Mime was a bit hesitant to not use his psychic powers because he was so used to it, but Brock managed to convince Mr. Mime to not use his psychic powers after mentioning that if Mr. Mime really wanted to prove itself to be a good cook, then it shouldn't have to rely on its psychic abilities. It should just be able to be a good cook naturally, mastering the art of cooking without using any special powers. Reminding it that it didn't really need to focus on putting on a show because no one aside from Brock was really watching it right now. Brock then tasted Mr. Mime's food once it was complete, and he noted that it tasted much better because Mr. Mime had put its own natural abilities into the cooking aside from the psychic. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket, Jessie was training Sneasel while Meowth and James watched. How was Jessie training Sneasel, you may ask? Well, she had brought in a huge block of ice, and she instructed Sneasel to carve an ice sculpture out of it that would look nice and fancy, hoping that maybe Sneasel will learn how to apply that to food and chop up food into nice-looking shapes as well. So, Sneasel did as asked, using Fury Swipes to make a sculpture of itself. Although, it was very small. So small, in fact, that Jessie and James needed magnifying glasses in order to view it, which James complained about, because he didn't want to strain his eyes. As for Meowth, he just stared at Sneasel with pure hatred, seeing the attention that it was getting from Jessie and James, but therefore taking attention away from him. Back with Ash and the gang, Brock now suggested that Mr. Mime try taste testing its own food, because he was going to have to get used to taste testing when Brock wasn't there. So, Brock did one more taste test, confirmed that it was good, and didn't need any extra flavoring, and Mr. Mime tested and confirmed the same. Back with Team Rocket, Jessie and James were trying to put on a lot of different stylish clothes and a whole bunch of makeup on Sneasel, essentially trying to make it more stylish. But they eventually got bored doing this, so Sneasel was left with those ugly clothes and the ugly makeup, while Team Rocket simply fell asleep, aside from Meowth, who just wasn't helping at all. Even though Team Rocket fell asleep, though, Sneasel didn't fall asleep, and was able to continuously keep cutting some vegetables better and better and better, because it was applying its cutting with Fury Swipes to food now, and it was cutting the food into nice shapes. And as for Mr. Mime, Brock was still awake, so he was observing as Mr. Mime was able to make a pizza, and he and Brock both confirmed that the pizza tasted very good. The lights momentarily went out because it was getting so late, so Brock had to pull out a flashlight, which revealed his own shadow for a little bit, but the lights eventually came back on once Rhonda and Rhoda turned them back on, and the Pokemon, Mr. Mime and Sneasel, continued to work on their techniques, perfecting them by the time the night came to an end, and the next day, it was time for the competition to officially begin. Rhonda and Mr. Mime were on one side of the restaurant, whereas Rhoda and Sneasel were on the other side. Brock and Meowth were in the middle of the restaurant, acting as the referees that would officially announce what was going on, while Jessie, James, Max, May, and Ash would all be the judges who would taste test to see if the food tasted good. Brock and Meowth then announced the rules, being that the judges had to decide who was the winner based on both the style of how they made the food and the flavor of the food. Brock then explains that both Pokemon would have a pile of food to dig through and a counter to cook on, and that would be it, pretty much, along with, the standard cooking utensils. He then officially declared that it was time for the competition to begin, and told both Sneasel and Mr. Mime to start, so they rushed off to their food piles and brought food to their tables to start cooking. Jessie and James wished Sneasel luck, and Meowth, not wanting to wish Sneasel luck at all, obviously, instead wishes luck to Mr. Mime, although Brock stops him, and also criticizes Jessie and James, saying that as a referee and judges, they had to remain neutral and not take sides. Ash, May, Max, Jessie, and James all looked on, amazed at how well both Mr. Mime and Sneasel were doing, noting that Mr. Mime had perfected the things that Sneasel could do well, whereas Sneasel had perfected the things that Mr. Mime could do well. Mr. Mime was of course doing its regular performance antics, but also it was cooking the food really well. The judges could just tell. As for Sneasel, it, of course, always made food that tasted good, but it was also making the food look better as well, as it gracefully slices several vegetables, including potatoes. Rhonda and Rhoda were very impressed with their respective Pokemon, with Rhonda particularly impressed by Mr. Mime's ability to cook food really well, not just perform really well, but Sneasel was really showing off its speed when it cut several vegetables, really impressing Rhoda. And just then, during Mr. Mime's performance, it started to use Psychic, but when Brock looked at Mr. Mime remembered what Brock said about not using Psychic, so it quickly stopped, and instead, physically, put herbs and spices into a bowl, instead of lifting them with its psychic powers, and it also taste tested each herb and spice to make sure that he put in the right balance, and also lifting up plates on its own, so that it could get ready to serve the dishes. As for Sneasel, it was really putting Jessie's training to use, decorating all of its food to make it look beautiful. Ash, May, and Max were utterly amazed by how well Mr. Mime and Sneasel were doing, and saw that the competition would be coming to an end soon, because both of the meals were almost prepared. Just then, Meowth panicked for a second because he saw that Jessie and James had disappeared from the judge's table and wondered where they were. Immediately after this, though, a black whip suddenly grabbed a hold of Sneasel, Pikachu, and Mr. Mime, capturing them. Action and the gang and Meowth were confused, but then Team Rocket stepped out of the shadows. They had been hiding in a spot where the sunlight was coming in, just hiding their bodies enough and turning them into shadows somehow. So they were able to successfully, sneakily steal Sneasel, Pikachu, and Mr. Mime, and then they threw them into small cages and laughed at how easily they had tricked everyone. Just as Jessie had planned, she now had Sneasel, Mr. Mime, and Pikachu. Jessie and James then began the motto, but they stopped midway, waiting for Meowth to say his line, because he still hadn't joined them. Jessie was furious that their motto was cut off, and quickly grabbed Meowth with one of the whips they had used, and angrily asked Meowth why he didn't do his line in the motto. Meowth simply stated, now that he had seen Team Rocket had captured Sneasel, they assumed that they liked Sneasel more, and were going to replace him with Sneasel as their third member, evidencing how nice they were being to it, although James clarifies that the only reason why they were being nice to Sneasel was so that they wouldn't get kicked out of the restaurant, and could therefore have an easier way of catching Pikachu. Meowth was happy with this, and continued Team Rocket's motto, adding in his line, and Chimecho and Wobbuffet joined in as well. Meowth even said his line more happier than he usually did. Rhoda was in disbelief that Jessie would have lied to her, and actually not have been a coordinator, but instead a criminal, and asked why Jessie would have lied, although Jessie just said that stealing Pokemon was way more important to her than her moral code, which angered Rhoda as well as Brock, since Brock was particularly pissed off because, it kind of ruined the entire competition and all that. And Rhonda was angered too, demanding that Team Rocket release the Pokemon, although Team Rocket just laughed, refusing. They quickly opened a window in the restaurant and jumped out of it into the Meowth balloon that happened to be waiting for them. Ash was immensely angry at the fact that Pikachu was stolen, and he told Pikachu to use Thunderbolt to try and break free from the cage, but Team Rocket just laughed, explaining that the cage was electric-proof. Knowing that the Pokemon in cages couldn't free themselves, May took action sending out Combuskin, and Brock sent out his Mudkip as well, and Combuskin and Mudkip used a combination of Fire Spin and Water Gun, but Jessie just laughed as the balloon was too far away for the attacks to make contact. The attacks got close, but not close enough. Jessie proceeds to taunt Ash Gang, Rhonda, and Rhoda, and simply just waving a Team Rocket fan at them and twirling the keys to the cage, being like, oh, you're never going to get a hold of these keys, and James, meanwhile, was just crying, super happy that they actually managed to steal Pokemon for once. Back in the restaurant, Rhonda and Rhoda were panicking, not knowing what to do to get their Pokemon back, but then Rhonda came up with an idea, telling her sister to let her handle the situation, and telling Brock and Max to not worry either, as she shouted to Mr. Mime from the Meowth balloon to get the key from Jessie by using Trick. So Mr. Mime does this, which had the ability to swap the spoon that he had in his hand with the key that Jessie was waving around. Basically, Trick had the ability to switch items from the user and someone else. Jessie was startled by this, but Rhonda used this to her advantage, running closer to the escaping Meowth balloon with Max, as she told Mr. Mime to use a confusion to levitate the key and basically bring it outside the cage so it could open up the cage. And the key does so Mr. Mime was set free and can now use the key to save both Pikachu and Sneasel from their respective cages as well. Team Rocket tried their absolute hardest to recapture Mr. Mime, Sneasel, and Pikachu, but Mr. Mime, Sneasel, and Pikachu all just tackled Team Rocket, stopping them from doing so, and Mr. Mime and Pikachu then jumped out of the Meowth balloon. Sneasel followed them, but not before cutting the balloon by using a Fury Swipes, which sent Team Rocket blasting off as they flew further into their basket on top of the now empty cages before the Meowth balloon actually landed. With that, Sneasel jumps out of the Meowth balloon as well, and Sneasel, Mr. Mime, and Pikachu all land safely because their trainers, Ash, Rhoda, and Rhonda, were waiting to catch them and hug them happily. With all three of the trainers grateful that they made it to their mons in time. Rhoda then tells her sister, Rhonda, that she was very grateful to her for helping save her Sneasel by having Mr. Mime use a trick, and stated that to show her gratitude, Rhoda would be more than happy to give Rhonda full ownership of their father's full restaurant, as opposed to doing a half and half. And she also said that she deserved it more than anything. Rhoda then apologizes to Sneasel for the fact that they would no longer get to work at the restaurant, but she wishes Rhonda all the best, knowing that she could run the restaurant very well on her own. However, as Rhoda was walking off, Rhonda was very sad and knew she would regret if she just let her sister not be involved in the business at all. So she called out to her sister and said that there was no need for her to leave, since they could run the restaurant together as a team. And if Rhoda really wanted Rhonda to be the owner, then Rhonda could just hire Rhoda and her Sneasel as an employee. And Rhoda and her Sneasel happily agreed, making Ash and the gang happy that the two sisters had ended their rivalry. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang being invited to sit in the now combined restaurant. It was no longer two separate restaurants, it was one restaurant, and Sneasel and Mr. Mime were even working together happily to create a meal that was equally as delicious and aesthetically pleasing at the same time, which Ash and the gang all enjoyed, including May's Munchlax, who popped out its Pokeball to really, really enjoy this. Rhoda and Rhonda also developed a stronger bond in the process once they told their Sneasel and Mr. Mime to do certain things, and Sneasel and Mr. Mime even became friends as well. Yay! The episode then ends with Ash and the gang leaving the restaurant, which now had been remodeled at the front to have a picture of both Sneasel and Mr. Mime together to signify the unity of the two sisters now. Anyways, Ash and the gang continued on their journey to Saffron City for May's first Kanto contest.